something dark is happening to Ariana Grande right before our eyes. All right, let's check it out.
All right, y'all. So a lot of people are telling me that it's rude to have this conversation, specifically me having this conversation as a man. But I think it's biblical what's happening. So we're going to have this conversation. All right. This is not AI. This is a real photo of Ariana Grande. This was taken at her most recent tour stop in Oakland. And this is a part of her Eternal Sunshine tour. Now, for obvious reasons, this photo went extremely viral. And there's a lot of other images that were coming out that had people extremely concerned. And we're going to talk about everything that's going on with Ariana Grande. I do want to first start with a video that was posted several months ago, because this conversation is not a new conversation. But the reason why this conversation is coming up again is because the videos are coming out, the photos are coming out, and for obvious reasons, there's a lot of individuals who are extremely concerned about what they are seeing. All right. So let's start with this video first, and then we'll have a conversation.
My body, my face, my hair, my voice. There's always
skin and
been
bones.
a conversation about my body, my face, my hair, my voice, my everything. And it's like, if you change it and correct it, then it's wrong again for different reasons. It's like,
I've heard every version of it, of what's wrong with me, and then you fix it, and then it's wrong for different reasons. I think in today's society, there's a comfortability that we shouldn't have at all. Commenting on others' looks, appearance, what they think is going on behind the scenes. There's a comfortability that people have commenting on that I think is really dangerous. And I think it's dangerous for all parties involved. No one has the right to say
I think we should be gentler and less comfortable commenting on people's bodies, no matter what. If you think you're saying something good or well-intentioned, we should really work towards not doing that as much. There are many different kinds of beautiful. There are many different ways to look
She looks
healthy
empty,
and
man.
beautiful. I know personally for me, the body that you've been comparing my current body to was the unhealthiest version of my body. I was on a lot of antidepressants and drinking on them and eating poorly, and at the lowest point of my life when I looked the way you consider my healthy, but that in fact wasn't my healthy. The second thing is you never know what someone is going through. So even if you are coming from a loving place and a caring place, that person probably is working on it or has a support system that they are working on it with, and you never know. So be gentle with each other.
there's always
I think, and
Snowflakes.
I say this with no disrespect, with no ill intent, but she is suffering, as we are all suffering.
She really
as human
is.
beings. We are all suffering in some way, shape, or form. And to be honest with you, the suffering that we are experiencing as humans,
Dang.
we have a lot in common in that suffering. But
That
she's
ain't
definitely
good.
suffering in some way, shape, or form. And I think for us to just sit here and not say anything and just pretend as if what is happening is completely normal would be vastly irresponsible, especially considering the fact that I have two young daughters who are easily influenced, who are easily impressionable. And now I'm not an individual who necessarily exposes them to this type of content or music or movies that she's involved in. Although I'll say this, I used to be a very big Ariana Grande fan back in the day. When she was on Victorious, I was a massive Ariana Grande fan back in the day. Even some of her music, now this is before I came to Christ, even some of her music, I could admit she got a lot of hits, right? From a musical standpoint, she is very talented. So it's no surprise, it's no secret why she has such a huge fan base. What you have to understand is, as a celebrity, you are going to be scrutinized. You are going to be criticized. You are going to be under a microscope literally 24/7. And listen, we were not made to endure that level of scrutiny on a daily basis. So obviously, she is suffering in ways that maybe some of us can't relate to, but honestly speaking, I think there's a lot of us who can relate to the suffering that she is enduring at this current moment. And that's why I think it's so critical. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about this. All right. And not ignore it, because a lot of her fans, they want us to ignore it. They don't want us to bring it up. And then what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. Just look at history. The writing's on the wall. We can discern where this is headed, where this is going. Right. And then what? Then everyone's going to be saying RIP. Then everyone's going to be, saying all this type of stuff. But how come you didn't have that same energy while she was still here on this earth? Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of people are saying this is her farewell tour. A lot of people are saying that she is dying right before our very eyes. Here's the fact of the matter. We are all dying. None of us are going to get a pass from death. We are all going to experience death. Now, what happens after is a different conversation entirely, and we will get there. Right? We will get there. But to simply ignore it, I think, is extremely irresponsible. I want to go to this video. This is by Kelly in the Know. Let's watch.
We'll see it, right? And we know that this is not a woman who is okay. And this was just 6 months ago. Now, this was 2 days ago. We should not ignore our own eyes here. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are saying. Don't talk about it. Act like you're not seeing what you're seeing. And we can't and we shouldn't. And I don't think enough people know the story of Karen Carpenter, who lost her life due to heart failure as a complication of her anorexia at the exact same age Ariana is right now. It's been incredibly hard to watch any content coming out from her first few shows on this tour. She should not be on this tour right now. Because of the conversations that came up about her weight loss when she was promoting Wicked, and she made videos saying she is the healthiest she has ever been, her fans are continuing to say that when people try and have any type of honest conversation that is happening here. And I do think at some point when you are a figure as big as Ariana Grande, it becomes dangerous not only to yourself, but to others. This is not just something you can see in pictures. You could hear it when she's singing. Her breath work is not as strong. You can look at the videos when she's dancing. Her choreography is not as limited and has basically choreographed sitting breaks. She does not likely have the stamina that she needs to fully execute this tour in a way that she would have previously. As a fan of her music, I am genuinely incredibly concerned. I want her to be okay. And this just cannot be good. Ultimately, I just really hope she has someone who is trying to help her, that she figures out a way to help herself. Because I can only imagine what toll this is actually having on her body and her health. At some point, we have to understand the part she plays in all of this. And I'm not just talking about physically, but even when she was promoting Petal, the pictures she chose to put out with that album are very reminiscent of ED Tumblr inspo pics back in the day. We saw it through award season in her costuming here. It's not in any attempt to hide what's going on. It feels like it's an attempt to highlight it. My own experience and what I know is when people are struggling in this way, this unfortunately is just giving them validation. I really hope she gets help, and I hope she can figure it out.
I can't speak to any of the alleged health concerns, eating disorders, anything like that. I can't speak to that. I don't have any experience in that realm. But, as I said before, something that we all share in common is suffering. We all suffer in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Right? And I think it's very important for us to be honest about that. And I think it's very important for us not to turn it into, and don't get mad when I say this, I think it's very important for us not to turn it into an aesthetic, because there are very real human beings, as I said before, who are very impressionable, who are looking up to Ariana Grande, who idolize her, who want to be just like her and do the things that she does and look just like her as well, right? So these are very real conversations that I think that we should have, and they do for sure have spiritual implications. I think it was so interesting. There were some people that got upset with this photo. Let me play this photo. There's some people who got upset with this photo. Here's what it says. And once again, this is a real photo. The second one is an AI depiction, but it says how you see this photo versus how I see it. And in this next slide of this photo, you can see the spiritual aspect of it, which I think is very real. I think that is very real. And I understand that this is like a creepy photo and whatnot, but there is real deception that is happening, right? There are thousands of people, potentially millions of people that are going to be going to her show throughout the course of her tour, right? And to me, this is just my opinion. Disagree with it if you want to disagree with it. What's happening in those crowds is worship. It is. That's what's happening in those crowds. It's straight up
what we were
worship.
made for.
And what are you worshiping? If you're not worshiping God, then to whom are you giving the worship to, right? And so I think that this is a very accurate depiction of what's going on. And it's sad because what tends to happen is when somebody is as talented as she is, when somebody is as famous as she is, oftentimes the fans, human beings, us, the people, she's a person too, but you know what I'm trying to say. We get deceived, we get intoxicated with the music, with the voice, with the talent, with the aura,
the person.
Right? We get intoxicated. And then from a spiritual standpoint, we're blind and we're unaware to actually be able to discern what is truly going on. Let's go to this video by Fitted Professor.
No, here comes the nuance police. Yes, babe, because multiple things can be true at the same time. Ariana Grande looks sick, and Ariana Grande probably is sick, and Ariana Grande is saying that she's not sick, and we as a society have a problem with talking about women's bodies, and Anna is a social disease, and her fans are going to see her and be socially influenced by her skinniness. And people with a history of EDs like me are triggered by seeing pictures and discussion of her. And we need to try to prevent this from becoming normalized. Just because we are not going to fix Ariana Grande on an individual level does not mean that we cannot have discussions about the impact of her appearance on society. That is what we do with celebrities. We talk about the impact that they have on society. I am not saying that Ariana Grande shouldn't be doing her tour. I'm not saying any of that, okay? I don't even want to wade into those waters because to me it feels very ableist. I think essentially we have three fundamental groups here. Number one,
I don't know what ableist means, but I don't think she should be doing the tour, in my opinion, if you're asking me. I don't think she'd be doing the tour. You know, I found an interview from about 6 months ago, I believe, where Ariana Grande was speaking about her motivation and why she wanted to do this tour. I want to play that because I thought it was very interesting.
I didn't even know she was still a thing.
She's literally killing herself in order to please the people around her, in order to please her fan base.
That's crazy, man.
In order to
she's gonna die way too young.
Capture the fullness of her art, if that makes sense. I want to play this interview, just a snippet of this interview, because I thought it was very interesting.
What would Ariana say is the trajectory of her career? What is the unifying theme?
Oh, wow.
I know it's kind of might be hard to answer this early in the interview, but
No, it feels clear actually.
ooh, she's ready to answer.
It feels as clear as
Incredible.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just am feeling a lot more connected to myself and my art since I started doing different things. I think I spent so much time only doing pop music, but I grew up as a girl who loved musical theater and comedy. So I think the thing that will be like best for my soul and also for my art and for what I'm giving myself to is if I'm chasing things that sort of feel just very right in the moment, even if it's spontaneous, if it's something different. Like I am doing a movie right now because it's a role that I read the script and I love it and it's funny and I love the cast and I'm so excited. And then I'm going to do a small stint of shows next year because that is like something that authentically sounded good to me.
Yeah.
And then, from there are other things that are different. And I think following those authentic impulses, feels like a really good idea, like a good thing.
You sure about that?
I think it's a sense of like getting older and understanding, like listening to your own body, like
Clarity.
figuring out, asking yourself, what do you want first, which isn't always the case in when we're doing a lot of work. We're sometimes doing things because we have to do them or we should do them. And then when you take even a second to say, what do I want to do? What feels right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that is learned over time. For me, when I, sort of came into all of this, and my pop career sort of took over my life in a way I didn't have that at all, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that is, I feel very like privileged and grateful to have learned that there can be room for different creative endeavors.
Yeah.
And, so that's been a really beautiful thing. I think it will change a lot. I think the last, 10 or 15 years will look very different to the ones that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say any definitive things. Like, I do know that I'm very excited to do this small tour, but I think it might not happen again for a long time.
Sure.
So I'm going to give it my all, and it's going to be beautiful. And I'm so grateful that I think that's why I'm doing it, because I'm like, one last hurrah.
Perfect. Because for now, never say never.
No.
One last
hurrah. I mean, I can't lie. It does sound a little bit sacrificial, in my opinion.
She wouldn't be the first.
It does sound a little bit sacrificial. The words that she's saying, mixed with the imagery that we are receiving from this tour, mixed with the state of her perceived health condition. And like I said, I don't want to make any assumptions, overly assuming more than what I already am, but just using my own two eyes, she doesn't look to be in a state of positive health. And I say that lightly, right? And I say that lightly. And despite what you may or may not believe, I say that with love. Now, there's a video that I want to show you real fast. I think I saved it on TikTok. Let's pull it up on TikTok here. It's essentially explaining some of the story behind her actual tour. And I want you to pay very close attention to the details. And I want to see if you're picking up the same things that I'm picking up in the spirit. All right, let's watch. Well, I guess we need audio, right?
The most emotional and gut-wrenching part of the Eternal Sunshine World Tour was actually the interludes and how Ariana was referencing her past selves and extremely challenging times in her life. And it was telling a clear story. However, I think a lot of fans are getting that story that they think she's telling wrong. So this is the very first interlude before she even does the opening number, and she's just living her life when her whole house starts to get destroyed, flooded, and imploded on. And this is clearly representing how her life went through a lot of damage and challenging times in the last 7 years since her last tour. So she makes it out of the house alive, but then once having survived, she realizes, wow, that is all so excruciatingly painful. I would actually like to forget all that just happened to destroy my life. So she sees herself getting the mind memory erasure procedure at Brighter Days Ahead. And she's like, yes, I would like to go through with the operation. The next interlude after the first set of songs, she's falling down this rabbit hole of her own hands trying to stop her from going down this path. We know it's her hands because they have the tattoos, and she literally asks herself point blank, are you sure you want to go through with the procedure? You really want to forget all your past selves? And then she goes to the Saturn return interlude, and when it screams, wake up, she wakes up in a flower field and is greeted by her younger child self. Now, this is probably the most impactful part of the interludes because her inner child is actually what's starting to make her see the light and the benefit of not forgetting her whole life. The child asks her, do you come here often to this beautiful, secret, peaceful garden? And Ariana says, no, I don't come here very often. The child says, well, do you need a push to get going on the swing? And she's like, yeah, showing the inner child helping her healing. So the next part is her and her inner child are seen watching The Wizard of Oz together, a clear Wicked reference. And at this point, this is extremely important. Inner child Ariana takes older Ariana Grande's hand and decides to walk her through a hallway, showing her past versions of herself, like yours truly, Ariana, all of her past musical eras that she will be giving up forever if she decides she wants to erase her memory. I want to go through this slow because it's so important. The second one is clearly One Love Manchester, Dangerous Woman era Ariana. The last era we see is a Sweetener era Ariana with a platinum pony and an either pink or white poofy dress. And we know it's a Sweetener era because the instrumental of Better Off starts playing. Here's a closer look at all of the specific outfits she's wearing from the respective eras. My question is, why do you think so firmly that she wants to forget One Love Manchester? The whole point of One Love Manchester was to never forget. And you think she would make this whole interlude forgetting it? I think she was actually like paying homage to it and keeping that memory alive by even including it. And then we know this because inner child Ariana shows her a room with a chair that she can take to finish the procedure and forget everything. But then inner child Ariana closes the door because she knows that's not what she should do. So Ariana immediately races back to the Brighter Days Incorporated office where she's almost done with her mind erasure procedure, and she tries to stop the procedure from happening so she can remember all her past selves. She unplugs the machine. It's still not working, so she takes a stool and whacks the computer, and it finally turns it off, thus keeping all of her memories and cherishing every part of her past selves. Her inner child has helped her heal and see that she would rather feel everything than nothing every time.
You know what's so interesting? So the flood narrative is...
First off, I see that music videos are just as crazy as ever.
Extremely interesting. And these are interludes that are playing at the show during her concerts, right? The flood narrative is so interesting, but also the idea of the memory erasing idea is so interesting to me, because from an outsider looking in, she's experienced and she's lived a life, and she's living a life that the majority of the population would do unspeakable things in order to be in her shoes, right? But yet she's expressing through her art that there's a lot of it that she wants to forget. There's a lot of it that she doesn't want to remember. And it's a wrestle inside of her, whether or not she wants to, you know, remember this or not. So that wrestle, that suffering, that pain, that level of, I don't want this anymore, or in my perception, you know, like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to feel these feelings anymore, even though I have all of this stuff. Because what does the world tell you? The world tells you when you're successful, then everything will be all right. Once you get some money, you know, it's going to be okay. Once you reach your goals, once you obtain a certain level of status, then all the problems that you had will be no more. But that's actually the opposite. Actually, what tends to happen is that once you get those things, then the problems that you never address, those actually become more clear and more apparent in your life. Those actually become a lot more of a problem at that point, because you've just been suppressing it. And during that time of you pursuing other endeavors, as opposed to addressing those problems, they've grown and grown and grown and grown. And now you have a situation where you seemingly have everything that you want, but then at the same time, you don't have anything that you actually need. You know what I was thinking?
What?
I was thinking about Ecclesiastes, right?
Ooh, Ecclesiastes.
Now, for some context, these are the words of the teacher, King David's son, who ruled in Jerusalem. I want to read this. So King David's son who ruled in Jerusalem, that's Solomon, correct?
Real quick, before he continues on with this, it wasn't too long. It was about this past year or so that I really, no, it's been a year, but I learned something, because I was like, I'm been reading the Bible several times here lately. And when I get to Solomon, you know, the story of Solomon, I see that, like, man, you know, he was given everything. He was the richest man to ever live, the wealthiest and wisest. And yet, at the last that we read of him, he's like sinning it up, you know, just like with witchcraft. I mean, it's just not enough to just sin. He had to bring in other gods, witchcraft, all this garbage, man. And I'm like, wow. So what happened to him, you know? Well, as it turns out, from doing a little research and stuff, they're pretty sure that Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon himself from his later years. And this is one of, like, remorse and regret. And you read it, you know, so next time you read that book, or if you choose to read that book, remember that. All right, let's get back.
Solomon says everything is meaningless. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Completely meaningless. This is so interesting. This is so interesting. How much wealth would Solomon have in today's terms, right?
Oh my gosh.
That's the search that I put into Google.
Wow.
This is what Google said. Based on the biblical accounts of his 39-year reign, estimations of King Solomon's wealth in today's terms often exceed $2 to $3 trillion.
Wow.
That's very interesting. Elon Musk just had an IPO for his company SpaceX.
Win $1 trillion.
With that IPO, Elon Musk is the richest person in the world with $1 trillion more than the next richest person in the world. The next richest person in the world is, I believe it's Larry Page. Yep. Larry Page has $301.4 billion. Elon Musk could lose $1 trillion and still be richer than the next richest person in the world.
Oh my
and
gosh.
King Solomon, in today's term,
was richer
they're
than that.
estimating between 2 and 3 trillion. So potentially, King Solomon, if he was alive today, could lose $2 trillion
It'd still be good.
and still be in contention for the richest person in the world.
Wow.
And he said that everything is meaningless,
Yeah,
completely meaningless.
he did.
Verse 8, everything is worrisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. History merely repeats itself.
Yeah.
It's all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, hey, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past. And in future generations, no one will remember what we are doing now.
Dang, that's deep.
Everything is truly meaningless. Now, if you go on to read the entire book of Ecclesiastes, the point that he's trying to make is everything is meaningless apart from God. Everything is meaningless apart from God. And I think there's a very clear illustration in 1 Corinthians 15, where it says in verse 58, so my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Always work enthusiastically for the Lord, for you know that nothing you do for the Lord is ever useless. I think that's the difference, and that's the point with a lot of what we see in terms of the worldly pursuits and the worldly attainment of wealth and success and notoriety. A lot of what we see is individuals who are doing these very impressive feats and they're accomplishing extremely impressive goals, but they're doing it for motives completely outside of the will of God. And over time, that begins to weigh on you, and it weighs heavy. And you can see it. It's easy to identify. You know what I was thinking? As I said before, I don't know what this is like. I don't know what she's going through. I don't know anything about eating disorders. I don't know anything about that, right? I have no idea. I have no idea. But I do know about suffering, and I do know about somebody who does have an idea about suffering, right? I want to read Isaiah 50. I feel as if maybe our sufferings are so unique that nobody could possibly understand what we're going through. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because there is somebody who understands exactly what you're going through, and his name is Jesus.
Amen.
And so we are all going to suffer here on this earth. But what are you suffering for? If you're not suffering for God, then you are suffering in vain. You are suffering for no reason. Because ultimately, like I said, let's put the speculation aside, because the speculation is this is a farewell tour, that she is dying, and this is going to be her last tour. Okay, newsflash, as I said before, we are all dying. Every single day, every single second, we are 1 second further, or closer, that is, to death. That is a reality that none of us can escape here on this earth. Romans 5. Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Through him, We have also obtained access by faith into his grace, in which we stand and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. For while we were still weak, at the right time, Christ died for the ungodly. For one will scarcely die, listen to this, for one will scarcely die for a righteous person, though perhaps for a good person one would dare even to die. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were still sinners, Christ died for you. Since therefore we have now been justified by his blood, much more shall we be saved by him from the wrath of God. For if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son, much more, now that we are reconciled, shall we be saved by his life. More than that, we also rejoice in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have now received reconciliation.
Amen.
This industry that she's involved in is a deeply spiritual industry.
Evil.
And it's a very self-serving and wicked industry in many cases. This is not true in every single scenario in the life of every single artist who is at this level, but in many cases, there's a lot of individuals, there's a lot of spiritual components behind the scenes that are at play. It's not just flesh and blood. There's a real spiritual realm that is at play. There's a real level of influence that these individuals have. And with that level of influence is always going to come temptation. Because if the devil can tempt one who is extremely influential, then the devil can tempt many. And so what I'm trying to say is that God understands your suffering. God knows you. He created you in his image, and he can heal you. And here's the thing. Maybe the healing might not look like your expectations here on earth, but the promise remains true that he will wipe away every tear, that he will make all things new. And that's not to say that God is not still a healer. That's not to say that God cannot work miracles. He absolutely can.
And does.
But we can stand firm on the promise that he will make all things new. And here's the thing, it is already done.
It is finished.
We're just working it out and experiencing what we're experiencing in time. But eternally speaking, it is already done. So I pray that Ariana can come to Christ, truly. I pray that she can come to Christ. I pray that she can turn away from the witchcraft that she has admitted. She has admitted to being involved in witchcraft. I pray that she can turn away from that. And I pray that she can come to Christ and receive the free gift of salvation that only Jesus has to offer. What do you guys think?
Well, that was actually pretty interesting. You know, the girl is truly, she's not in a good place, but the good news is she still has breath in her. All right. And as long as she still has breath in her, she has a chance to turn to Christ and turn everything around. So if nothing else, we as Christians, we need to pray for Ariana Grande.